Something I'm super aware of right now is how incoming information can almost immediately change my nervous system. If somebody is yelling or there are bright lights or loud music, I can feel a shift and not for the better in my nervous system. And so, right off the bat, I'm going to invite you to just take a deep breath as you're listening to this and see whether that deep breath can help relax your nervous system. One of the things that I'm always trying to do with my teachings is put you into a state where you feel safe, where you can hear the information that's coming in without having to do a bunch of scrambling to defend yourself, to expect that I'm going to say something that's going to be hard to hear or super controversial, because we are on nervous system high alert these days. And we don't need more of that. We are working on learning how to soothe and calm our nervous systems. And we're going to talk about that today because we are talking about the sign of Cancer and the connection to the digestion. In this case, the way that we take in stimuli that makes us emotional and what we do with that after it lands in our system. What are we supposed to do with it? How are we supposed to process all of this energy and these fears and this marketing and desires, all of these things that are coming at us constantly, and we're supposed to manage them. So we're going to get into that. I am Nafa Perkins of Electra Astrology. What's going to follow is a talk from my season 5 podcast, Star Narratives, where I went through every single sun sign and went through all of the facets. So if you haven't had a chance to listen to those, I invite you. They're all under the playlist on YouTube called Astrology for Awakening. And I am now officially releasing them as standalones. I've edited them and I've taken out certain parts. And now we have the distilled version of all of these teachings because I approach astrology as if it is a tool to understand your psychology. You don't have to have a sun in Cancer. You don't have to know anything about astrology. We are organizing your life, your experiences, your history in easy to understand and digestible ways using astrological archetypes. I want you to understand more about who you are and what you're doing on the planet at this time so that you can heal, so that you don't have to keep being emotionally activated by every piece of stimulus that comes in, because that's where we see problems. We see all of these great powers around the world. And what happens? They're totally activated by stimuli and they don't have the self control, or maybe they are so focused on power and money and making sure that their egos are satisfied and fed that they don't even think about having a personal understanding of their deeper inner world. One of the ways that we can affect change, each of us in our own way can develop a strong relationship with our inner world because that's where our heart is. That is how we connect with other humans and other beings in a clean, clear, loving, grateful way. And we need more of that energy, less fighting and disrespecting, angry, full of hatred, and bored, right? Because what happens when these people get their power and their money? What do? They devolve into scary, toxic, and taboo behaviors. Okay. We all know what I'm talking about. We want to be the balancing act to that, which means that we have to address our own inner workings. We have to address the toxic parts of ourselves, the parts of us that are money and power hungry, that are run by our egos and our inner critics. And we need to practice coming back into the present moment in a stronger connection with our higher power, whatever that might be. And also a stronger connection with our higher self, which is right here. So today we are talking about the archetype of Cancer. Now we go into how the archetype of Cancer shows up in the body, and it is all through the chest area, the breast area, and into the digestion. Scorpio is also connected to digestion, and that's where we continue to process and then eliminate. But for now, we're going to be talking about what happens when something comes in and it causes us distress, whether it's another person coming at us with a need or a want or a desire that we feel that we need to fix or help, whether it's somebody that is not giving us something in return that we were hoping for. We don't feel loved. We don't feel seen. Our feelings are hurt. We're moody and withdrawing. Or maybe our emotional reaction is to try to control somebody. I want for you to do a thing my way, so I'm going to give you something so that you're indebted to me. We are also emotionally thrown off when we fear that somebody that we love is endangered or is suffering or is going to be hurt. And these are all Cancerian examples that I'm giving. But we know that when we're emotionally activated, that we go into a certain stress response. And if you've taken my Wired for Emotion class, you know that the stress response that usually goes along with this cancer is codependency and trying to fix something. But we are working today on our tendency to fix. And I have several other Cancerian talks that are going to follow this. So make sure over the next few weeks that you listen to these Cancerian talks because they're really good. But what happens when we get emotionally activated and something is going on in our chest area, in our breath area? Oh, we feel it like a kick to the chest. We feel it. And then we have a response. So we're going to get into how to work with that response without having to disintegrate into some of these toxic behaviors that we see everybody acting out all the time. If you like my style and you would like to work with me privately, you can find me at electroastrology.com. And let's jump in. Sure, we all have that Cancerian private side. We come from ancestry, lineage. We are so impacted by our emotions and the effect that our emotions have on others and the effect that other people's emotions have on us. Cancer, the fourth house. Cancer is ruled by the moon. We have covered in the past few weeks the transition from Gemini into Cancer, which is that mental activity into the emotions. We know how interconnected those two things are. And we also know that thoughts and emotions are not the most dependable. They're good to bring us information, but we don't necessarily want to set our hat on those. But we have to give both of those things some time and space so that we can process them and then decide after processing if they are useful. And today we are going to dive into the physicality of the sign of Cancer. So emotions. We know that we feel emotions through the physical body. That much is obvious. We know that we also work with emotions through the lens of the mind. And so both of these things are feeding us information about how things make us feel. Something about emotions is that we don't really have control over them. They descend upon us. They hit us without warning, and they can bring us into places that are hard to get out of. And so then the question becomes, well, what are we supposed to do with them? Right? Like if I'm not supposed to totally give stock to this emotion, even though it is making me really activated, what am I supposed to do with it? And if I can't just let go of an emotion, it's not that easy. What am I supposed to do with it? So let's tune into it. Just close your eyes, take a deep breath, and begin to sense into your core. And which of those areas, your chest area, your breast, or your digestion, which of those wants your attention right now? And just feel into that area. Give that area some breath and just notice what you're feeling in there. It might be multi-layered. You might have many different feelings in there. And I think a lot of us aren't always so aware that emotions that are stored in there. We might feel a sinking stomach. We might feel sick to our stomach. We might have something that feels hard to stomach. Something might turn your stomach. You see where I'm going with this? We have idioms to talk about the stomach, and they're all related to difficult emotions. If you are just going through your life, oh, I feel queasy, and not think anything of it. But if you start going into it, feeling into like, why did my stomach sink? Why do I have knots in my stomach? Why do I have butterflies in my stomach? Why is my stomach feel like it's turned? Because our stomach has so much going on. So what is happening in your core right now? And are there any emotions that have been stored in there or anything even that has happened today before you listen to this podcast that you feel might be activating your stomach? We talked a lot in Taurus season about how the body brings us information about how you are responding to something, how you are feeling about it. But because so many of us are trained out of feeling our emotions, we are trained to look at an uncomfortable stomach, for example, as some sort of physical ailment that needs to be helped with something like Pepto-Bismol or Alka-Seltzer, as opposed to diving into it and trying to understand. And that is part of being a good mama to yourself. It's that Cancerian keyword of attunement, where you are trying to literally make sense of why something is happening. Why do I feel anxious? Why do I feel upset? Why do I feel rejecting? I think that one of the reasons that there is a lot of internalized trauma, many of us are holding on to things that have happened in the past. We are not processing them when they actually happen, and they're just hanging around. So if you are somebody that tends to have a chronic digestive issue, where you have bloating or intestinal cramps, these things that so many of us suffer from, it would be helpful to go in and try to understand what triggers those things. If you've ever had a reading with me, I talk about the idea a lot of backtracking. When you have some sort of physical ailment, going back 24 or 48 hours to get a sense of what was happening that was stressful for me in the last day or two, and how is it currently impacting my ability to digest the proverbial bloat. We also think about the things that we keep hanging around in the chest area. We talk about nursing resentment or nursing a grudge, and that would relate to the breast. We say phrases like letting it fester or harboring a grudge. Those things all give the same kind of energetic feeling, right? It's like we're just holding on to it. And sometimes we make a conscious choice to hold on to things. We feel that it is self-protective. We don't want to get hurt again. We are climbing into that Cancerian crab shell, and we are trying to protect ourselves. If you are noticing that you are holding on to things or that your digestion is triggered by emotional reactivity, where you are nursing resentment, or you are unable to digest things, it is possible to do some healing and to do some intentional balancing out of that energy. Remember that Cancer ruling emotions is about the flowing water. So allowing things to flow, getting things moving. So what do we do when we need to get things moving? We have to get into our self-care to make sure that we are eating the right foods, that we are eating foods that are nourishing for our bodies, that we are processing our emotions with people that we love, therapists and best friends and journals. It's also good to get a sense of where you are nursing resentments or you are holding on to grudges or old hurts, because those are where there's a lot of ripeness for processing, especially right now at this point in time. We want to get rid of all of this stuff. So if you feel on some level like you're backed up or you're emotionally constipated, maybe you're literally constipated, this is a good week to look at the idea of laxative, whether it's an herbal laxative that you take to get yourself physically unstopped, or maybe it's some sort of emotional laxative where you're having a good cry or you're finally sharing a painful story with a best friend. This can be very cathartic. And remember, just like when you are physically constipated, it can take some time to detox. And the detoxing can take many forms all at once. You might detox by curating what you're looking at and not allowing really emotionally triggering things to come into your field of awareness. You might be detoxing by spending extra time outside in nature and resting. And I can't emphasize enough, private time to spend in your own mind, with your own psyche, with your own higher power can be incredibly detoxifying. So take a deep breath. And ask your chest area, your intestinal area, whichever one wants more of your attention. Ask it, what is it that I need to work on detoxing this week? And it will likely give you an answer. You will know that there's some sort of story that you are holding on to, some sort of history, some sort of memory. And those are fourth house Cancerian moon things that you are still trying to self protect. You're holding on to it. You are being, I hate to say this, but you are being anally retentive and you will not let it eliminate. This is a perfect time to really work on the elimination and be kind to yourself. Be a sweet, mothering, intuitive energy. Be that powerful queen that is in control of her emotions, her thoughts, her money, and her actions. And be that strong advisory energy that tells you which direction to go and where not to waste your time. I really encourage you to go deep with yourself this week. That reminds me, I have my Moon Cancer Emotional Reflection Journal here. This journal I love because I created 12 of them. And any kind of journal can be really helpful for you at this time as you're working on understanding what you need and how to tend to yourself and how to get some of that stuck stuff out. We don't want to hold on to old emotions that are painful because that's what can cause the emotional component of dis-ease. We are working on healing right now. If you were the best, kindest, most benevolent, understanding, supportive, protective mother that you could possibly be to yourself, how would you be parenting yourself? And how would it be different than how you are parenting yourself currently? You're not consuming too much sugar, too much alcohol, too much distressing content. You are setting boundaries for yourself that are appropriate. You're going to sleep on time. You aren't obsessing about things that bring you into your own dark side, while you are also listening to yourself, being kind, being compassionate to yourself, making sure that you have naps and good snacks. Okay. So if you do nothing else this week with any of this astrology teaching, remember, this is your week to mother yourself better, to really tune in to anything that is stuck in your gut. We've had many, many years where we have gotten to take spiritual awakening, this personal growth, very slowly. And we have gotten to take our time and avoid and not deal with stuff and indulge in bad communication and use substances to numb ourselves from our stress. Like, those times are over if you're listening to this podcast. Okay. Because now really is the time where we are accelerating on the planet. And this healing work is no longer something to just be talked about. It is something to take action on and feel into it. And remember, at least my experience is that the more that I heal, the better I feel. So you are doing yourself favors as you're tending to yourself and tuning in and keeping that flow going. We want to flow like the river. We want to be the water flowing around those rocks that continues on to the sea. All right. Thanks for joining me, guys. I hope that you learned something, and I will see you all soon.